Hi, this is Jake Kern. Welcome back, Blind Faith. Sorry, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. It's not a very good excuse, but I've been busy with school and stuff. I'll be graduating this spring, and just been focusing kind of on finishing up on my biology degree. But I really think it's important. Sorry, this message might be a little bit long today, but it's extremely important. I think there's many questions as Christians that people that might be non-believers ask, and honestly, I've asked many of the same questions of myself. I'd have to give a shout out to one of my friends. He's a chaplain. Sorry, he's a Ravens getting a drink, but he's a chaplain, and so he's got a 4-year degree, or basically in theology, I believe, and all of a sudden he came to me one of these days and asked me one of these questions I've been asking myself 4 years ago. I couldn't answer. Now it was one of those questions that honestly I did the wrong thing with. 4 years ago, I asked myself the question, instead of researching too much into it, I just ignored it because I'm like, well, some parts of the Bible are hard to explain, so I'm just not going to explain it. And the question's a very simple question, but it leads to many other questions too that I've had over the years. And I'm going to start with a question that I had 4 years ago that I did come to somewhat of an answer, because it leads up to this one. This one's a lot more difficult, but 4 years ago I asked, if the Bible's real and true, God's real, how about the dinosaurs? We have lots of proof about dinosaurs. And how could dinosaurs be real, but never ever mentioned in the Bible? And there's a couple different hypotheses that we could use to explain this. The first one is it is mentioned in the Bible. Now, I'm going to butcher this word. The word is Leviathan. It was explained as basically a beast that looks like, perhaps maybe people think a whale, or even came for a visit. A beast that might be a whale, might be more of a snaky sea monster. That's one translation, but you must realize the Bible was originally written in Hebrew, and it's sometimes hard to translate. And the other translation means long-necked beast. Long-necked beast, I believe, is a very similar long-necked monster. I'm not getting the exact translation. But did the Bible mention, because it said God killed the Leviathan, it's saying right there that God killed the dinosaurs? Did God kill the dinosaurs right there? Now I get other questions then. Well, this time scale doesn't make sense, because when the Leviathan was on the earth, there were humans, and everybody knows that dinosaurs went extinct long before humans were on the earth. There are a couple things with this. First of all, we misunderstand the Bible was the dinosaur-like creature killed before humans were on earth. The saying, a bigger one was, there's actually caveman art, I believe it's down in Texas, or some part of Africa. I get confused because there's one area that they thought they found human footprints next to dinosaur footprints. They believe it was carved by the wind. I believe that was Texas. So then in Africa somewhere, there's a picture on a cave, the caveman drew, of a long-necked, what most people would call a brontosaurus. I don't think that's the actual name of that dinosaur anymore. I think scientifically it's been changed. Look up Apatosaurus as well, as another long-necked dinosaur. The general idea is that there's a long neck, long-tailed dinosaur. Very classic from Jurassic Park. Many people have seen one of those before in a movie, and this drawing was very, very good. Now, there's two hypotheses. First, this caveman never seen a dinosaur and was trying to picture a very scary creature, so he gave him a long snake-like neck and a long snake-like tail with a small head. But if you were trying to make it really scary, why didn't it have teeth, enormous teeth sticking out of its mouth? Or why didn't it have an enormous spike on the tip of its tail, like a scorpion, like something to eject tons of venom in or something? Or perhaps this person, ancient human, found dinosaur remains, but again, that would be very difficult for someone back then to find the remains and go, oh my goodness, bones, let's put them together. Oh my goodness, it makes a very long neck, long-tailed, enormous beast. And so, the other question is, are we a little bit off on time scales a little bit? Were there humans that seen dinosaurs? And that would connect up to the Bible a little bit more. And were the dinosaurs perhaps one of the creatures wiped out in Noah's flood? Or was the asteroid the fist of God, because God said you'd kill the Leviathan by hand? So was the asteroid that struck the Earth the fist of God, or sent by God, striking down the dinosaurs? And again, these are all hypotheses. There is no true evidence to support them. We don't know for sure. But it's kind of how I support the evidence of dinosaurs and my belief in God. Now another important question leading off this, I mentioned caveman before. And cavemen that you picture might not actually be true cavemen either. So in Europe, in Asia, there were humans called Neanderthals. Neanderthals, depending on what part of the world you come from, however you want to pronounce it. Some scientists are arguing now that it should be pronounced Neanderthal. I tend to say Neanderthal, but Neanderthals. And now, Neanderthals, also known as cavemen, were not Homo sapiens, modern humans. 98.5% of our genomes, our genetics, our DNA, were the same. And some humans, 4% of the remaining 2% is actually up to shared as well, showing interbreeding. So now, my friend, Chaplin, asked me, so how are cavemen and the Bible connected? And he was really asking because he was picturing cavemen being like these uncivilized humans living in a cave that didn't really even live together, just hunted, gathered, didn't really have much culture. And it's not a fully true statement. Homo sapien and Neanderthals, and actually Homo erectus, the third group that we never interbred with, Homo erectus doesn't have much proof of culture and stuff. Homo sapiens has lots of proof that we had culture, music. We were advanced. As much as looking back now we say we weren't, but we were an advanced civilization. Neanderthals had the same thing. Neanderthals had music, possibly not starting to believe. Cave art, possibly believe. Tools, possibly believe. And so they were relatively similar, actually. Just genetically, like I said, not the same species. Perhaps not quite as closely related as dogs and wolves, but maybe that close. I don't know what percent dogs and wolves are related, but probably relatively similar. Capable of interbreeding, but definitely different species. Now, before I bore you too much with the scientific stuff, I want to get to the point. And the point is that in the Bible, there's part of the Bible that is talking about Adam and Eve, and it says Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. Everybody knows that. That's a very common phrase, but I feel like a very commonly missed phrase that people just misunderstand or just don't even notice. Honestly, I didn't notice the first 20 times I read the Bible, probably. Like, I read the first part of the Bible. I've never made it through the Bible, unfortunately, but I've started it like 20 times. I read that part every time. And no one notices that a sentence doesn't end there with a period. Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. That's not period. The exact sentence is Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden to join the fallen angels in the world. And I might not have gotten that sentence exact word for word, but that's a rough estimation, roughly what it says. And so I asked McKay when we were having this discussion, my friend McKay, the chaplain, and I'm like, so McKay, when you read that sentence, what do you think of? And he goes, fallen angels, I assume they sinned against God and God killed them because they're fallen. And honestly, I think that's a little bit of our Western culture seeping in. We hear fallen soldier, someone who gave their life fighting for our country. We have to keep in mind that fallen angels might not mean dead. Let's give a good example. Angels have different hierarchies. This is important to understand for later too. They have God at the top, of course, and then Jesus, and God and Jesus kind of top together. Part of the Trinity, there we go. And then beneath the Trinity, we have archangels. You can tell an archangel is an archangel because they have a name. Gabriel is a good example, archangel. Satan actually was an archangel before sinning against God, majorly sinning against God. And God did not kill Satan. He threw him out into the void, but he did not kill him. He actually threw him out of the void. He still exists. Beneath archangels, there's unnamed angels. I can't give you a name. They're the angels that help us every day. When someone goes, oh, that must have been an angel there. And those are just the regular angels watching over us. They still have wings, still fly, but they're not quite as powerful. Then beneath all that, I say, is humans, that we're kind of bottom of the hierarchy. God's basically king. Archangels are basically dukes and duchesses. Regular angels are basically like lower nobility. And then we're like the common folk, the common people. But in understanding this, even the low angels have wings. These likely weren't any archangels. We've seen what happened to the archangel and he went against God. That's the devil. Still bothers us to this day. He still tries to tempt us and stuff. But the important thing there is that a lot of these other regular angels made mistakes too. They went against God's orders. They didn't follow God's orders perfectly. Fallen angel, I believe, is an angel that has lost his wings and has been sent down to earth to live among the humans on earth, the animals on earth originally, and then humans are thrown up to join the angels. So, were the Neanderthals, the Homo erectus, all the other Homo groups, all the other human groups, were they all fallen angels? Because fallen angels would probably look relatively similar to humans. They've lost their wings, so they don't have wings anymore, so they'd look relatively similar to humans. But genetically, they may not be the same. They might not have identical look. For example, Neanderthals have a slightly wider nose, shorter arms and legs, slightly different body structure, but very, very similar to humans, Homo sapien. And even further, I believe if I remember right, the Bible says something about humans interbreeding with the fallen angels, and genetically we've recently found proof that we did interbreed with Neanderthals. And then the question McKay was really trying to get at, because this whole spin on this, I did not answer his question through the whole thing. His whole question was, as Adam and Eve were thrown out, and it really sounded like that they were instantly civilized, instantly growing big cities and stuff. And what you have to realize is early humans did have sort of cities. the population was just a lot smaller. So now what we would call a small community, I mean, sometimes we may even call it a family or two, 10, 20, 30 people, back then was basically a city. It also explains, looking at that, I'm going to go a little bit off track and come back to this, but looking at it, it also explains genetically how we could have came from just Adam and Eve, because if you read the Bible, we're interbred with the fallen angels, so we didn't just come from Adam and Eve. We do have descent, or some genetics that came from outside sources. But back to the cities. So McKay's big point was, why were we living in small groups like that if it makes it sound like we're living in cities in the Bible? And the honest truth of the matter is that these small cities these small communities were actually cities. They, like I said, they did have art, they had music, they had language. They weren't just grunting back and forth at each other. They weren't just sitting around the fire, or sitting around the circle eating raw meat. They were cooking, they're helping each other. So I do believe that these were the humans thrown out of the Garden of Eden. And probably how we were meant to live in the Garden of Eden. These small communities, or group of people that just took care of each other, helped each other out. Now we've exploded to massive population with massive cities, but we have to just realize that when we say civilization or advanced civilization, they were advanced back then. We look back now, I'm doing this video on an iPhone. Back then they didn't have an iPhone, so they're not as civilized, they're not as advanced, but I'd argue that they were still very advanced and stuff. They misunderstood, but yes, so I do believe that the Bible and science do support each other. And one last thing before I go, I know this video has been way too long, let's talk about Noah's Ark for a second. Again, very large struggle. Geneticists, especially people who study genetics, struggle to understand how humans could have came from just Noah and his wife. Again, reading the Bible, it does say Noah's kids and their wives were all brought onto the ark as well. So it wasn't just a man and a woman, it was actually several people. And the honest truth of the matter is there has been some proof now finding genetics that humans were bottlenecked, brought down to only a couple hundred individuals at one point. Genetically, we're that similar that we were only brought down a couple hundred individuals. However, I would argue that this number could even be far less, because God selected Noah's family. Could have God selected the most genetically diverse family that would have the best chances of surviving, have the most genes to pass on to survive in this ark too? And maybe the genetic diversity, as I would say it, was very high in this very small family. And it's important to understand that as well. So again, I guess by this whole video, what I'm saying is science doesn't disprove the Bible, and the Bible does not disprove science. Really, they run parallelly together, and really, science supports the Bible, and the Bible supports science. There's a lot of scientific discoveries we're making now that the Bible knew 2,000 years ago, or more. I mean, you look back at Adam and Eve, and again, how long is a day in God's world? How long is a million years in God's world? I always like that joke. God, what does a day to you day mean to you? Or God, what is a million years? And God goes, a second. That's what it was. What is a million years? And God goes, a second. And then the person goes, God, can I win the lottery? And God goes, just give me 1 second. And it's really important. That joke's kind of funny, but it's really important that joke really speaks a lot of truth. That's one other thing scientists use to try arguing the Bible's not real, not true, is that time doesn't make much sense in it. But the honest truth of the matter is for one, it was humans writing this down. It wasn't. God did not write this directly, so there's a lot of human error probably. Misunderstanding, especially, maybe not error, but misunderstanding that humans struggle to understand vast amount of times. So it's possible we didn't have the capability of understanding that vast amount of time that God was talking about, and they screwed up and wrote it down different. Especially going from the Old Testament to the New Testament. The New Testament really was written down by, again, people. And even if you like to argue like parts of the Old Testament, like Moses and stuff, perhaps God made sure that was written down correctly. But the Bible's been translated how many times? It was translated out of Hebrew into many different languages. It's been rewritten multiple times, many of these times using typewriters. It's easy to make mistakes, or even handwriting. And handwriting is very easy to make mistakes too. Back then, they couldn't just click backspace and erase, so if they made a mistake, it'd screw up the whole page. So a lot of times, I'm sure those mistakes sometimes just stayed around, and now it's part of our Bible. So there are little mistakes probably all over, and that's just possible years got messed up. But even bigger, when it says years, what were years to God? Was God having written down in His years and not our years? Because if you do the math and you add it up and multiply it and say God's years are a lot longer than, or our years, one of God's years is many of our years, you can come to the math that perhaps Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Perhaps the dinosaurs did go extinct 65 million years ago. 66 now, some scientists say, but either way. Again, it does not disprove the Bible. So, again, these are just a few arguments. You can let me know if you agree with them or disagree with them. Like I said, scientifically, it's a hypothesis. Hypothesis is something that I've got some evidence for, but you might be able to find better evidence for supporting something different, and you might be able to disprove this. But as of right now, in my mind, these are some of the best arguments to use to try to help sway people who are either struggling with this question themselves, because like I said, I struggled for years and finally set aside because I'm like, some questions are not answerable. And I thought it was one of them. Or the other thing is helping people who are trying to decide if Christianity is the best path for them, or if they should be atheist or another religion. And these are the things holding up. You can use these arguments and try to help show them that the science and the Bible do not disagree. Thanks for listening. This is Jake Career Blind Faith. See y'all next time.